All right, Keith, welcome to the Golf Coach podcast, mate. How you going, brother?
Toby, what's going on, man? Yeah, happy to be here. I appreciate you calling me up and having me on the show.
I appreciate you coming on. I really do. And, I use this podcast to kind of catch up with friends and meet people. We've spoken quite a few times through social media, and, we both do, a lot of online coaching, and I saw you post something. I was like, hey, I want to catch up with Keith, and why don't we just record something and get on the podcast? And, yeah, mate, I really, really looking forward to this here today. So we're going to dive into some topics for the listeners listening, and we're going to talk about, common traits that the slicer has, and then common things that we would do to try and get ourselves kind of out of those behavior patterns. And we're going to kind of segment it from setup all the way through to the certain type of golf swing. So if you're a slicer or you're a golf coach, or you're interested in understanding how we break down and fix things, this is going to be a great one for you guys. So whereabouts are you, Keith? Where do you coach out of?
Yeah, so, this time of year I'm located in Scottsdale, Arizona. So my family and I purchased a home down here in Scottsdale last year. And we do, I was just telling you, before we jumped on, we do about 8.5 months here in Scottsdale, and then we do about 3.5 to 3 months up in Seattle, Washington. So my wife and her family are from Seattle, and we moved down here to chase a little bit more sunshine, and it's a little bit more conducive to coaching year round. Not that you can't coach year round up in Seattle, but it just gets a little bit cold, a little rainy, and doing about 7 years of that, I tapped out and I said, no mas, no mas when it comes to the winter coaching up there. So yeah, we booked it down here, but you can't beat the summers up in Seattle, and the summers down here in AZ are a little hot. So yeah, we go back and forth. It's nice to see some family and friends up there for the summer months, get in on some of that, ideal weather up there, and then come back down here when it starts to rain. So we're going to run that operation for, probably the next, 3-4 years until our son, who's almost 2, is, of grade school age type, starting into that whole kindergarten. So first grade thing. So we'll do that, and we'll kind of reassess what we do, what our month structure looks like from there. But that's for now. That's what we're doing.
We do a similar thing, actually. Like we run away. We're just organising it now, actually, to go to Bali in February, which is still summer here. But we've got friends over there we want to catch up with in February. But it's good when the kids are young too, because you don't have to worry about the whole school thing. And I don't know what they're like over there. They're pretty strict here in regards to, like, you can't take them out of school. It has to be school holidays and all that type of stuff. And it's really cool that you get to do that. And I had a friend of mine back in the day who's a surf coach, teaches surfing, right?
Yeah.
He travels the world just going to surf camps. And I remember talking to him, I was like, nickname's Undies, right? And I said to him, Undies. I think his last name was Underwood or something, right? I said to him, Undies, when was the last time you saw a winter? He goes, Tubby, I haven't seen a winter for 9 years.
Yeah.
Because he just chases the work, right? And
Yeah.
that's crazy. And, people listening to the podcast know that I'm not big on the cold weather. The cold weather's not, I'm not fun with it. And you get real cold over there, right? Like, what's it like in winter in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty mild, if we're being honest. I grew up in Vermont, and Vermont on the east coast of the U.S. those are some cold winters. Like, you'll get down to -10, -20 at night. You got to insulate your water pipes so that they don't freeze and burst. I mean, it's the real deal there in the wintertime. So I know, and I come from the cold for sure. I know what that's all about. In Washington, it's pretty mild. You'll get some winters that are warmer than others. You'll get some snow. Like, you'll definitely get like a week's worth of snow randomly, but then it sort of gets rained on and it melts. But yeah, it's probably in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 degrees most days. You'll get like a random 60-degree day that pops in there and then goes away. So it's mild, but it's like it's not. It won't freeze you, but the rain will soak you to the bone. That's for sure.
Cold enough to want to get out of there too, right?
Yeah, totally.
So how is Ollie going? What's he, nearly 2, right?
Yeah, Ollie's almost 2. He's doing really good. Yeah, he's in a really fun stage where, starting to spit out different words almost every week. Starting to develop a personality. He definitely knows, like, what he's doing is getting a laugh, from mom and I. So he'll keep doing it, or he'll like expand on something that he thinks, is getting a laugh from us. And, just more and more active. We took him over to like a trampoline park this last weekend on Saturday, just, go jump around. And we had done that probably, 4 or 5 months prior, but even, 4 or 5 months after the first trip there, he's, able to move around more on the trampolines and jump a bit more. So it's cool to watch the progression. I would say, as a diehard coach, it's really fun to watch the motor pattern learning, the trial and error, the the resilience. If he falls over, he's not freaking out about it. He just gets up and tries the thing again. It's really refreshing to see that as an adult, and just remember, hey, I could be that way as an adult too. I don't have to, succumb to the social norms of frustration and complaining about everything that we kind of fall into that kids just don't do. So it's fun to watch that and just kind of remind yourself of those things.
They're like, persistence a great word, isn't it? Like with children, like they don't, when they're that young. I got two. I got one who's 2, like about to be 2, and the other one, and he's in the same stage as that, where he's cracking us up. Like he makes when the kids start making you laugh, that's when it gets really funny. When you're not laughing at them, but they're making you laugh. It's really cool. But the whole my 2-year-old is just so persistent. Like he just he's so determined. Like he throws stuff down my stairs every day, right? Like every day. I can hear him trying to lift my foam roller up there, or my my ball, like my gym ball, and I can hear him going, ugh. And you just sit there for 10 minutes till he tries and does it. When my 4-year-old, he's about to be 4 in March, he'll give it 2 cracks and go, nah, walk away. Like, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Has he taken to a golf club yet?
I mean, so we have like little plastic clubs, like, lying about in the backyard, and he gets, and we have a putting green in the backyard. So he gets that the golf ball goes in the hole, he'll do a little clap when it goes in the hole. He gets to hold the golf club. He'll hold it with one hand and he'll swat at a ball with one hand. So he understands the premise of, this tool moves this ball in this manner from, watching me whack it around and do stuff like that. So, I mean, they're lying around. He'll pick them up, grab them, throw them down, move on to something else. But he's got a good arm. Like he's accurate. He's got a good throw, overhand throw. I can't tell if he's lefty or righty yet. Cause mom is lefty. I'm righty. So it could go either. He might be a switch hitter, which would be deadly for sports. But, and he likes to kick at balls too. So, anything balls related, he's into right now.
It's the same as mine. My youngest, before we get into the golf stuff, right? He is full left foot dominant. Like his left foot, everything. He's a left foot. And he has been since he's come out of the womb. Like, because he loves, like, I think he's developing quite quickly due to the nature of having an older brother.
Right.
But he's left everything. It's crazy. But I'm glad that he understands the premise of getting it in the hole. Where, see, my kids are in my golf studio here, and they just hit balls in the screen. And I'm still trying to teach them we take them to the mini golf. We got a really cool mini golf near our place. Like the real fancy. It's got all undulations, and it's impossible to get a hole in one. And I try to teach them that you got to get the ball from here to into the hole.
Right.
And my oldest will kind of hit one shot, doesn't go in, goes, picks it up, comes back. I'm like, no, you can keep going.
Right. Yeah.
Keep trying. And he goes back, starts again. I'm like, oh man, come on, Billy, let's do it. But anyways, and before we get into it, like, I'm really looking forward to like taking my eldest to work, to the golf course. Like he's close to being able to come and just hang out, while I'm teaching. Which that'll be really cool. That'd be really cool to have him around.
Yeah, no, that'll be a trip when that finally happens for sure.
Yeah, give his mum a break too, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into golf. Let's get into some golf. So,
sure.
One of the topic areas I spoke to you about today, that I kind of put forward to you, was like, let's get into some traits of the slicer, and then let's talk about some common traits first, and then let's dive into some ways how to fix the orientation of some certain things that we're talking about, and some potential kind of exercises. I've got the list here, and I've got a pad and pen as well to kind of keep up with what we're talking about here. But if we're talking about the slicer, is there some common traits? Let's talk about setup position. So we call that P1 in coaching terminology, right?
Yep.
What's some certain stuff that you kind of see around the setup position in regards to a slicer?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing, and I was doing an online lesson with one of my subscribers on Skills this morning about this exact same thing. Is like, getting the orientation, the position of the sternum and the pelvis kind of, in the proper spot at address. So often we'll see that sternum kind of, on the target side of the pelvis, so kind of like a leftward leaning spine for a right-handed player. And then from there, that right shoulder just kind of kicks out in front of the chest, and that right shoulder covers the left shoulder from the down the line view of the camera. And then, either the hands will go out and the club will roll in, or the hands and the club will go straight out and up. And then the kind of the over the top pattern sort of starts to ensue from there. And you just, I'm kind of a firm believer that I think, aside from like some real bad physical limitations from somebody, like there's no reason that the average player can't set up pretty darn close to a tour pro, right? I mean, we haven't swung the club yet. We can just shift and move our body into an orientation that will be conducive to things going right from the jump. And I mean, there's a reason why you just look at any tour pro, any range with tour pros on it, and their coaches are all, checking their setups, checking their ball position alignments. So I'd say one of the biggest things is just, the getting the sternum a little bit kind of to the right of the pelvis, a little bit of, spine tilt to the right shoulder a little lower than the left, speaking to the right-handed golfer, at address, and just making sure that right shoulder is a little bit back of the left. Maybe, I wouldn't say orienting the shoulders close to target, but, certainly I would bias there than the other way.
Yeah, definitely. And when Keith's talking about bias there as well, is that, you can manipulate each setup position to kind of suit each type of golfer and what type of shot they want to hit. Now, the reason why setup is so important, is, you listen to tour pros talk about setup position, and changing ball flight starts at setup for them. So a lot of the time they will not manipulate their golf swing to hit a different flight. There will be little details, but we can manipulate setup position to try and do it. So if we understand that the tour pros are doing that on TV to manipulate their flights, John Rahm's a big one with driver off the tee. You see him do it a lot. You know exactly what he's going to hit. He even sets the ball up out of the hill when he wants to cut it more. And so that's how important it is. And I guess one of the things as well, Keith, is setup is not a sexy thing on social media, is it? Like it's not spoken about. It's not sexy. So so pelvis tilt and the sternum there. So I use let's call it the buttons on your shirt and the belt buckle. Potentially having the buttons on your shirt a little bit further behind the center of the pelvis is a big one for me. And I even got another coach last night who sent me an image, Keith, from behind. I take that camera angle from behind a lot of the time when I'm coaching, or ask my students to, because you can see the orientation of that spine through the shirt, and how the belt is also tilted as well. And when Keith talked about that, is you even talked about kind of closing your shoulders off as well, can start to get that orientation a little better for us as well at the same time. And it's a definite big one. If to me, one of the things that I will say if I'm putting out there a video to the masses is a slicer will often have the sternum leading the pelvis in the downswing. Well, if it's set up in front of the pelvis, it started we're in trouble already, right? Yeah. So what about certain ball positions or grip types, anything kind of there as well?
Yeah. So here's how I like to think about hitting shots. I don't think you can even really talk about setup until the player has firmly identified what they want the golf ball to do. So I believe in working everything backwards from the ball flight. So tell me where your target is. Tell me how you want the ball to get there. And then I'll tell you where in your stance, what your grip should look like, where you should aim, how your feet should be oriented, to bias your shot pattern towards hitting that shot, right?
Love it.
So if you want to, let's just say, going from a slice to a draw, or a slice to just hitting it straighter, right? we know that ideally we swing on a little bit of an arc, from waist high to waist high. And there's just a brief little moment in time where that club face is on the target line, right? It's moving inside and then back inside. So I think so many people, and again, this isn't sexually on social media, which is the tough part, because this is what I would want to like beat into everyone's skulls, is like, if you don't know the ball flight laws and the physics of what makes a ball fly to a target, then like it's going to be really hard for you to like understand why you might move the ball a half ball back towards your trail foot, right? Or a half ball forward towards your lead foot. Like, if I want that ball to start a little right of my target for a draw for a right-hander, it's going to be a lot easier for me to do that from a ball position that's slightly back of center, because the face hasn't squared up yet. The path is still likely moving from the inside, and that ball's going to have a better chance to start to the right, right? So when you're talking about ball position, grip, all of that, like, it's hard to teach people that stuff, because I think they're looking more for like, give me a quick little thing that works right now to like rid me of this issue. But if I teach you to fish, right, I'll feed you for life. If I give you a fish, I'll feed you tonight. So it's understanding the physics of the ball flight, why you might bias the ball position slightly back. But like I said, it's building the setup back from the ball flight, because so many people stand back there and I ask them like, well, what do you want the ball to do before they ever hit? Because I want to know, so I can judge what they said they want the ball to do based off what the ball actually does. And then I ask them, did that ball do what you thought it did? And all the question asking starts to ensue. But so many people will be like, I just want it to kind of go. If it draws, that's great. If it fades, I don't care, as long as it's consistent. Well, I'm like, well, you better get pretty damn clear on what you want the ball to do before we swing this club, or else like we got a lot of issues. So. And it's kind of a long-winded, answer to your question, but biasing your setup off of what you want the ball to do, I think you have to start there, and then you can say, okay, well, maybe we want the grip a little bit stronger, or maybe a little weak, depending on what the player's bringing to the table already. But that's how I like to think about it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. So you have to have a very good understanding of what you want that ball to look like. You want to try and create a predictable ball flight. And, what Keith's saying there is that when someone says, I just want to kind of go straight, and, I don't really care what I get as long as I get something, consistent. Well,
right.
Consistency comes from training something really, really good and a nice, I guess, I'm not going to say neutral technique, but more of a repeatable pattern through lots of consistency of training, right? Where when Keith, and I are asking a lot there about what ball flight do you want? Did you expect that? What do you want? Because we can alter these things that Keith's talking about at setup to try and give you the ball flight that you want, because making swing changes is very, very hard. And that's why Keith works the way he does with, we'll talk about his in-person kind of setup and our online coaching, because it takes time to make swing changes. But we can get your desirable ball flight just through getting some really good information from you and then adjusting your setup position. So with the grip position, they're making it stronger. So that would mean the top hand being more. Would you talk about the top hand more there, Keith, or both hands?
Yeah, again, it depends on what the players bring into the table. Yep. In my experience, most players bring the top hand or the glove hand to a lesson a little bit on the weak side. So, kind of rotated, palm sort of rotated away from target. And most players, I rarely, well, I don't say it's never, but I rarely see people bring like the bottom hand way like crazy weak. I do see it, but I see more like the top hand is sitting in the palm of the hand. Yeah. They're not going to be able to leverage the pad on their hand to kind of pick the club head up off the ground. And it just puts them in a position where that arm's going to want to roll inward, and then it's going to want to open the face. So yeah, definitely making sure that for the top hand, which is a big navigator in the golf swing for sure, the glove hand is in the appropriate part of the palm, so you can utilize the pad of your palm to kind of push the handle down so that the club head cups up, and then obviously so you've got room to kind of take that risk from a extended position to a bit of a flex position in the downswing. All of those things are really important. And again, like you alluded to, it's hard to make posts
Okay.
about these types of things and gain any sort of traction. But
Yeah.
like if I had it my way, and and if it were, a different way of doing it would be like posting a video on the setup and the grip, like, 3 times a day for the next 3 years, because if people start showing up with good setups and good scripts, you and I will be out of a job pretty quick. So, um,
Yeah, Stephen Giuliano, he says the same thing all the time. He says if people, even before they came to our teaching TO, came to our thing, if they just watched our videos on grip and setup,
yeah,
I say in this podcast all the time. I think that if the world had a better setup position and a grip included, they would be 5 shots better.
yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep. Not even close.
yeah. So that's like the whole on an average. All right, so we're gonna get into some fixes for this type of stuff, right? So takeaway position, right? We'll kind of flick through this stuff here. Takeaway position, which is P2 when club shaft is level to the ground in the backswing. For a common slicer there, so people wanted to check this here, we can often see like a bit of forearm roll due to some poor mechanics at the start, which we're talking about, and then we'll see the club face really get open and potentially on the inside. Would you kind of agree with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd say, and again, like it's almost crazy, but I fix that exact issue, several times a week. It's just I can't see any end in sight.
Yeah.
I think I'll be fixing that one for the rest of my days. Which again, it comes down to poor setup, and one of the big reasons there is, for the listener at home, if you're not driving in a car, if you're making dinner or something, and you just stand up kind of in a 7-iron posture and you let your arms hang down in front of your body and just let them totally relax, you'll see that your thumbs hang inward towards the center of your body some amount, right? That's how they kind of want to hang. And most players rotate that their lead arm, their glove hand, they rotate it, kind of palm up towards the sky, as an exaggeration before they grip it. So that palm wants to kind of rotate back towards its relaxed position, right? And so when it wants to do that, well, that opens the face and it pulls the club head inside in the takeaway, right? So, like they're setting themselves up for that to happen all the time. And so if you can get that glove hand on there, in its orientation that it wants to sit, a little bit more, kind of extension in that left wrist, or sorry, in the glove wrist, a little bit more in the fingers. It doesn't want to roll as much in the takeaway. Now, it feels really awkward for a bunch of players, but when they get used to it, it really does, help solve a lot of those face issues.
I agree. Yep. So you can start to see a trend here, right? It's all kind of stemming from setup position. So we've gone through takeaway position. So for a common slicer, we'll see club head rolled on the inside. So if we're talking about the orientation of the shaft, there, people listening, let's call your feet on the target line for argument's sake. Your club shaft for the right-handed golfer will be looking to the right, and the toe of the club being in the outside of your club, the shiny bit that I call it, that'll be facing generally more towards the sky.
Yep.
And what Keith's talking about there is that if you've got your hands on a steering wheel right now, just pretend you're turning the steering wheel too far to the right. So don't do it though, because you might crash. But as you're turning that steering wheel, that's what's kind of happening there. So that takes us to the top of the backswing, right? What's a common thing that you'll see? Where does that position the takeaway, which we see a lot of slices in, right? And a slice here, right? We'll talk about what it's doing through impact, but what will you see at the top of the backswing from there?
Yeah, so that early takeaway roll in the club head, inside, too far to the right of the target line with the face open, if you kept going back on that really, well, it flattens the swing plane really quickly. So it flattens the shape of the swing. So, if you tried going continually to go back on that plane, that flat plane that you've set, your swing would be so flat that you would have no chance of hitting a acceptable golf shot. So from there, folks tend to lift their arms really late in the backswing process, kind of heading up towards P3, lead arm level to the ground, and that lift creates momentum, which takes that club shaft, what we call, across the line. So the club shaft, if you're thinking about like the heel line or the toe line of the player, the club shaft doesn't become parallel to those two lines. Starts to become at a diagonal. And then from there, all the reroutes have to happen. So that flat takeaway, they have to lift their arms late. The lifting late takes them across the line. And then basically from there, you could probably name a handful of tour pros that, like a Shane Lowry who gets kind of crossed up a little across at the top and kind of makes it work. But you're not going to find a ton who have a super across the line club shaft at the top and can pull off the reroute in any sort of consistent basis.
Yeah, some people can, but they're definitely getting there in a different manner than what we spoke about for the takeaway position, generally speaking, right?
Right.
But I think the biggest killer for a slicer top of the backswing, right, is the laid off and open club face.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, when we see a slicer, right? So if you're a slicer and you're listening to this, right, or you're a coach, and the club face is laid off and it's super open, there generally speaking is a really big steepening effect to take the downswing to get started, and then from there they're kind of pulling on that handle, and holy Mary, they're in big trouble, right? So laid off and open is a very dangerous place to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, laid off and open is pretty much an impossible place to play golf from unless you're super talented and have been doing it since you were 8 and you've done it at an elite junior level or something, the exception to the rule more or less. But yeah, for sure. I mean, you can almost just you can guarantee that club is going to be crazy steep at left arm, lead arm parallel in the downswing and pretty much from there, you're either going to early extend to try to save it or you're just going to get even steeper in the downswing, so it just becomes a nightmare.
And generally by that time as well, the orientation of the lead wrist is like a bunker because they're already super open and they've pulled that handle down in that left hand. So when Keith's talking about extension there, right, we're talking about let's use it as simple. I can use a simple term called cupping of that left hand, right? When you guys hit a bunker shot, your top hand is quite cuppy. That's what the orientation of a laid off and open club face will look like, and you won't be playing golf for very long if you're there, in my opinion. All right, so if we just get down to impacts, I want to get into some solutions, right? Let's talk about impact. So can you tell me what is causing the ball to slice? So from, let's call it like TrackMan numbers or whatever you want to use, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, in simple terms, the face is open to the path, right? So it depends on, if you're describing a pull fade or, push slice, we're assuming that club is coming from out to in. So for a right-handed golfer, right, the swing direction's left, path is left, and the face is open to that path. So no matter what, if you're slicing the ball, chances are your face is way too open in your golf swing, right? So most people would be just fine if they just hit, hard pulls for the rest of their life, to be honest, because it's not going right. So they would be fine if the face was just super shut and the path didn't change. But yeah, if we're looking for real solutions, then bottom line is your face is open to your path. Now, it becomes tricky because, like I said, if you just fix the face, you'll now be hitting, some hot screamers to the left. But again, some people are just fine with that because they've seen the ball go right their whole life. So they're anything other than right is fine. But the interesting thing is, I again, in golf is counterintuitive in several ways, but people actually, I've heard so many times from people in person and online, like they're trying to swing their club over to the direction that they'd rather have the ball go. So they're trying to swing the club left, right? Not knowing that that's going to make the ball slice even, more extreme. So a lot of these issues stem from misinformation. Like if golfers had better information, I don't think there'd be nearly as many lost golfers out there. But again, there's some counterintuitive things in the game of golf and swinging a club that make a ball fly that, golfers just have a tough time wrapping their minds around.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where, you spoke about at the very beginning there about the understanding the knowledge of the ball flight that you want and teaching, I love to teach people how that ball flight can happen. And that's one of the new things on Skillers, right, Keith, with these new groups that we've got. So we've got the community of groups and our students in there. I'm really enjoying the fact of educating my students on why certain things happen in regards to kind of ball flight laws, so we can have discussions about this type of stuff, which is really cool, which has been a great feature added to the Skillers platform. But so to even kind of talk a little bit more about that, so what we'll see there is the club face, it's a general rule, right? If someone says I'm slicing the ball, what's happening is the club face is facing open to your path, right? Which is what direction that your club is swinging on. Let's call it like just swing direction, right? So we're generally going to see a divot for the right-handed golfer heading towards the left, right? And for the pool slicer, and the club face is facing to the right of that, right? Now, when I was going to say there is that when someone hits and someone says, "Oh, Keith, look, I hit a straight shot. See that one? That time it worked," right? What generally speaking is happening there, right? We're generally always seeing what I see in my coaching, Keith, and you can tell me what you think of this as well. Is that I'll see a general swing direction that doesn't have a whole lot of variance in it. So the swing direction, people listening, right? There's a couple of major influences, right? One being, let's just call these two influences I'm going to talk about, which is club face and club path. Or we'll call it swing direction, right? Swing direction, club path. And swing direction and club face, right? The swing direction being that, for the listeners out there, the divot on the ground. That is generally quite consistent to a few degrees for all golfers. The biggest one that I see in difference is the orientation, the club face. So we talk about club face control. So when you say, for the listener out there, if you're hitting big slices on your bad shot, there's a good chance your club is swinging, let's call it 8 degrees across the golf ball, right?
Yep.
Now, that is going to leave you very open to a lot of curvature on the ball. Think about the way you curve a football or a soccer ball or whatever you want to call it, or a tennis shot. You're doing the same thing, and sometimes you're going to get that club face managed quite well, and when you don't, that's when you hit the big slice, and you say, "Oh, that time I did a shitty swing." Well, let me tell you this. The swing was exactly the same, variably speaking. We've got gear effect on the club and club face. Would you agree that the club face orientation is the biggest dispersion, Keith?
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, anytime I'm giving a lesson, like my TrackMan data backs that up, right? The differential, the plus or minus on the club face is anywhere between 4 and 5 degrees of the average, right? Which means if their average face is 5 degrees open to the path, it can be as much as 10 degrees open, or it can be 0, right? It can be square to the path. It can be square to the target line. So the dispersion or the array or the cluster of shots that folks witness is quite jarring to them, because they assume, well, if for the ball to do all these different things on swing after swing after swing after swing, I must be changing fundamentally so many things in my golf swing every single time, right? And I totally empathize, because that intuitively, that would make sense. How could this ball fly left, slice, straight, high? How could it do all of these things in 4 different swings all in a row, even though it feels like the same swing? And I totally get how that can be crazy frustrating. And again, this comes down to this boring, basic, fundamental information of, for a slicer, if you hit the toe of the club, the weight of the ball will open the face and it will launch the ball a little bit straighter than where the face might have been. If you hit the heel, it'll close the face, sending the ball left or close to where you thought it might have been. And most folks, if you look at their, tightness of centeredness of contact on their club face, well, it's all over the map. So if you throw that in with the variability of, plus 1 or 2 on the path, plus 4 or 5 on the face, I mean, you're talking about, you could get any type of shot on any different swing.
Yeah.
In educating golfers that will never go away, we just want it to get a little more predictable, and for the edges of that dispersion pattern to come in from the sides and from the top and bottom. That's our only goal, is to get the edges of our dispersion pattern to shrink month after month after month, year after year after year. And that's all we can do. But you got to have a starting point. And most folks just need the information that their swing isn't fundamentally changing from swing to swing. There's just a lot at play. And that's why golf is tough.
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. And, what is it? It's like if you're 2 degrees off from what was it? 7-iron, 160 yards, 2 degrees off the face, you're 18 yards left. Something like that. 18 yards
it's like
left.
20 yards offline. It's like nothing. It's like doesn't take anything.
Yeah, and then people go, "Oh, I did a shit swing there." Well, it's a lot of environmental stuff that can come into play, but I think Keith used a really great word there before we get into some fixes here. Right, is predictability. Like, I love to try and help people. Change the word consistency and start using the word predictability. Because if you've got a ball that's going to curve in a certain manner more often than not, so I say to people, you're a slicer of the ball or a fader of the ball, if you can get it 8 out of 10 times starting and looking like how you want it to look like, and then just manage the 2 times that it's going to go, you might, where we definitely cannot afford to miss it in a certain place, then you're starting to create a more predictable ball flight that you can play golf with. But if you're just lining up and you're just hammer and tongs everywhere, that's when the player can't play golf.
Yeah.
I love the word predictability. I think it's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think consistent, you and I both know this, and you can ask any other golf coach on the face of the earth. The number one thing that people show up wanting at lessons is more consistency, right?
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I like to define that more deeply. I go, okay, well, what does consistency mean for a golfer? And they have no idea, obviously, but that's why they're at the lesson, because if they knew, they wouldn't be at the lesson. So I said, okay, to make the ball do what you want more often, which is that your goal? They all say yes. We need to start to hit more often the center of the club face, right? We need your club face. If you put an alignment stick 10 feet out in front of your golf ball on your target line, we need your golf ball to start on one side or the other more often, right? So that means purposefully angling your club face to the left or to the right of that stick at impact on purpose. That can be practiced, just like volleying in tennis or passing a soccer ball to another player on the ground. That's all practiced. We do that as youngsters, but we forget to do this simple stuff as adults. And then if you want your ball to curve a certain direction, well, then you have to understand the physics of that curve, and you can set up practice stations with avoidance obstacles or external objects to swing around or to miss or to avoid, or you can just do slow reps or think about whatever you want to think about to make the path move in the direction relative to your face to get the ball to curve. Like, it's so simple and systematic when you break it down, but I think people get overwhelmed with like where to begin, and nobody wants to like go back to the beginning and feel like a beginner if they've been playing for 10 years. But like in certain cases, you kind of have to. Like if you're if you're so fundamentally set on changing your ball flight, like you're gonna have to break it down a little bit and learn some new things and learn some new ideas and concepts, and be strict about your practice. Like, I've probably seen hundreds of times where we set an alignment stick on the ground in between the player's legs, and we say, hey, put the ball in line with that alignment stick every time and put it in the, this part of your stance. And we looked 4 balls later, we looked at that alignment stick is nowhere near where we put it the first time, and the ball position isn't even in line with the stick. And we're like, how can I express to you that this most basic concept is literally holding you back from playing the golf that you've always wanted to play? Like this tiny thing, if you don't respect this tiny ball position thing, I'm just sorry. It's just, it's, your variability is going to be off the charts.
Yes. And I got a video of myself. It's very difficult because it's to try and control the environment as much as possible, because my golf swing, does have a little slight variability, but, and my friend Steve Giuliano as well, he's got some cool videos of this as well about, where ball flight is and the impact it has on the club path and angle of attack, where it's positioned in your golf swing. And if you're lazy,
I love that video.
If you're lazy with that, I'll often just share that with people just to kind of show them the importance of it. And this is what the tour pros are doing to try and manipulate their ball flight, and you're just doing it willy-nilly and wondering why you're not getting a consistent flight. But it's funny, when we're getting some setup principles, right? But you mentioned there about consistency. It reminded me, I have a lot of people who listen to the podcast, and I had a guy the other day came for a lesson, and he said to me, oh, hey, Toby, how you going? And I think it was the 3rd lesson we've had, and he listens to all the podcast episodes, which is nice. And he said, oh, I just need a little bit more consistency. And he goes, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I know you don't like that. I was like, nah, dude, you can say it. You can say it. I'm just trying to help change the language out there. And it was quite funny. And he's like, I know you don't like that word. I'm like, what do you mean? When did I tell you that? And he goes, oh, on your podcast. I was like, oh, okay, sorry. But, Richard Woodhouse put it this way. Richard's a good friend of mine. He's a high-performance golf coach up in Queensland. And he said he was really passionate about it. He thought he was going to jump through the screen. He goes, Toby, tell me what's consistent. He goes, the lie's different. The pin placement's different. The wind is different. He says, your yardage is different. How you're feeling is different. He's like, the position that you're in is different. The hole 1, hole 2, He's like, tell me what's consistent about golf. He goes, the only thing that's consistent is the size of the hole.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, to be fair, everyone gives Bryson a lot of flack for like, soaking his golf balls in these solutions that, show him, the imperfections of the golf ball, and putting two Sharpie markers on the two dimples that are, perfectly next to each other when he putts. Like,
Yeah.
in a game that is so inconsistent and unpredictable, the best players in the world are absolute nut jobs over what they can control, right?
Love that.
They are nut jobs about it because that's all you have. I mean, I work with this college player on the Skillest app, this great talented girl, Paulina, and I mean, we just had some great conversations recently about her nerves and all these things about getting a little bit nervous to play. And I just said, take a piece of paper. On one side of that piece of paper, write down everything you can control, and on the other, write down all the things you can't control. And I bet you one side of that list is bigger than the other, right? And the list on the things you can't control is massive. And I said, if you can't control it, don't pay any attention to it. What's the point, right? If you are just dialed on the things you can control, then you know that you've done all you can, and you can go out there and play free and accept the result. And she loved it, and she had some good results recently, and it just. I know we're not talking about slices anymore, but it kind of all ties in there really with this idea of consistency and coming back to the idea of predictability. Knowing the side of your target line that the ball is going to start on. I think that's a pretty basic one that a lot of people can get better at. Just knowing how to control your club face at the bottom of your swing can be trained. It's a skill, right? Hitting the center of the face is a skill. It can be trained. You just got to put some effort into it, and then you get more predictability out of your golf shots.
Yes, and that you talk about that control with that lady there. We got some friends going through some stuff at the minute, and talking to them late last night, and I just said to my wife, just send her the Serenity Prayer, which is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can. And it's just basically just putting the things up. What can I do? What can I do to give myself the best possible outcome? But, to kind of, on that predictable thing that you spoke about there, which just kind of, I was just thinking about, and yes, we want to limit people's curvature of the golf ball, right? But when we talk about predictable ball flight, let's say that that 8 out of the 10 times your golf ball is going to curve from left to right somewhat, right? Let's say that your variability is within 0 to 20 yards, okay? And 8 out of 10 times it's going to do that. Well, if you know that and the pin is cut on the right-hand side, then you just aim 20 yards left of that flag. So then if you hit your best shot, which say 2 out of the 10 times it goes straight and might go a little left, then you're generally going to be quite safe. But if it curves to the right, you're allowing for your variability because you have a predictable ball flight. It's going to curve. Curves a lot, goes next to the hole. Your friends say, great shot. And you're like, oh, slice the shit out of that.
Right.
Hit a good one. It goes in the middle of the green, goes 20 feet left. And you go, great, 20 yards, I'll take it. So that's what we talk about when we talk about a predictable ball flight is, for instance, like the 18th hole. I love to use the 18th hole at TP Sawgrass as a, that one where the water goes around on the left there, curves around. Everyone knows the hole. Par 4 finishing, goes around the left. These tool pros have got such a predictable flight that they know where to aim it and it's going to move off it. Like they'll aim over that water if they're going to fade it. You know what I mean? And that's what they're doing. And sometimes they don't know how much it's going to fade. It might fade a little more or might fade a little less, but they're allowing for it to happen, right? That's what I kind of call predictability. All right, let's talk about some stuff now. Let's kind of let's back it up now to kind of, introducing fixing a slicer. And I love some of the stuff, and I have seen a lot of the stuff that you post around. I do the same thing, like alignment sticks on the ground to try and help shift people's perception around what they need to have happen, right?
Yep.
In regards to it. So let's talk about setup and then just go into that impact, right?
Yeah.
So to fixing, we spoke there about the sternum and things like that. How can people get consistent, right, in creating the same setup position to get rid of where they're at?
Yeah, I for sure. So I think it starts with a model. The way I learned how to do it was I took a screenshot of a player that I thought had good, I pretty much emulated anything Rory did when I was first learning. So, I took a screenshot of Rory's, address setup position, laid it, printed it out, put it on the ground, and got in front of a mirror and tried to look how he looked in a mirror. Right. I mean, it's not overly complicated. I think as humans, we mimic others, right? Like we're talking about watching our children grow up. They mimic what we do, right? Yes. Like, that's how adults learn. We watch and we emulate and we mimic, right? Like everyone's like, well, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Like, I could print out a picture of Tiger and tell you to set up like him. And I bet you in 15 minutes of messing around with your body, you could look like him. And you go, holy crap, this feels different than what I usually do. I go, yeah, right. But that's how it should feel to you right now. It might feel different in a month. So I think you need a model, right? I think you need something to look at to try to copy and compare yourself to. I think that's how we all learn best.
And with that model, sorry, Keith, cut you off there. If we're a slicer with a negative path left, would you? And I like the idea of Rory because he's a draw bias golfer, right?
Right.
So you think maybe looking at a draw bias type of model would be a good idea?
Completely. Yep. Draw bias type of model. Like, you're not going to look at Bubba's setup to fix your draw right off the tee, right? So, yes, make sure that the model is appropriate for sure. Yeah, totally there. And I think you can either way, like even a fader of the ball on the PGA Tour is not going to set up crazy wild. So I think you can kind of get away with, looking at most players. But one of my favorite things just to get like the spine tilt is just so simple. You just take your non-glove hand, your trail hand, you put it, at address, you kind of take your non-glove hand off the club, put it on your right thigh, the outside of your right thigh. You just kind of run it down your leg until your middle finger touches about where the top of your kneecap would start. And that kind of lowers your trail shoulder underneath your left. And it just gets you basically started off having, better spine tilt at address, right? And then that also will pull your trail shoulder back a little bit towards your trail heel, which, again, for most folks, will square their shoulders off if they're biased towards having their shoulders too open. But that's just a really simple, kind of trick that I've used with so many golfers that's easy for them to remember. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in coaching is if it's not easy for them to remember when they walk away from the lesson, you've got about a 2% chance of them doing it when they're not in front of you. So you got to make it, stupid easy, because all of our brains, you and I know, we'll leave a lesson and be like, oh, I'm going to go write out, some things that I just learned from that lesson. And then, your 2-year-old walks in and he's got a whole, he's doing whatever he's doing. And then all of a sudden, we don't do it. So, it's got to be so easy. Those are some 2 things that I would suggest to get that set up right.
Yeah. And introducing a potential setup routine too, right? Like a potential routine and, ball position as well. And it's okay to be, like a lot of the exercises around setup and impact stuff, like I encourage people to buy a strike mat, on the ground at home and just get comfortable in the mirror. Now, Keith's telling us there, right, that he printed off a picture of Rory McIlroy, which is so crazy you say that because my friend, again, Steve, who I help coach over in Singapore, I think he's maybe, actually I won't say that. Oh yeah, over in Singapore, right? He puts a video on the ground of a golf swing with someone with nice tempo.
Yep.
And he loves to watch that. So he'll watch the tempo of a golf swing there. And, people listening to this know I'm a massive Robert Rock nerd, right? And I've studied his golf swing a lot. He talks about in podcasts about how he was working at a car dealership at night as security and they had the big windows there. Yeah. And he would look in the window at his setup and his golf swing. And that's where he kind of built a lot of his golf swing and his setup, right? So that's really cool. And getting back to kind of ball position there, using some alignment, I use some, what they call the T-claws, like strings on the ground to try they don't move. And when you're training is like, do 5 balls, come back, and then test your alignment. So take your alignment up to a ball, put your club on the ground, and you can even just use that and just see where your ball is positioned. When you start seeing the ball flat, probably not doing what you want to get done, and learning how to get really comfortable in the this ball position and what it looks like to your eyes, because
Yep.
you can have a bad night's sleep and just feel a little bit tight on the left side of your obliques, or, really tight up under your rib cage. That can tilt your spine. All of a sudden the ball starts looking differently where it's positioned on the ground because your eyes have moved. And then all of a sudden, if you're not getting used to controlling that environment, God, it's tough to get there. And it's a hard thing to do, is to repeat your setup every time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you and I are both golf junkies, so like I'll have a club lying around the house and I'll just walk over to like a door frame and I'll put the club face up against the door frame just to like see what square looks like. It's like it just never ends, right? I mean, because when you get to a certain level too, when you start getting better at this game, all these things matter more, right? Like the tiniest ball position will start to influence your face angle a little bit, and then that influences your backswing, and then that's where the tour pros get off. It wasn't because their swing broke down. It's because you see Scotty Scheffler practicing with a molded grip every time he hits balls. I mean, like you'd think the number one player on the earth can hold his golf club, in the dark. But like even he's like, this gets off because I bet you it got off for him as a junior, and then he was like vowed never again to let his grip get off because it was a nightmare to fix. And so, he and his coach Rick, Randy Smith, obviously he uses that molded grip. So yeah, these are just things: ball position, grip, face angle, all that sort of stuff. You can't do it enough. And if you want to be really good at this game, you got to fall in love with just doing the boring stuff. And it's not boring because it'll lead you to your best scores, and then you're going to start loving it.
Yes, boring golf is good golf. So when we talk about, we touched on the grip there, right, for the slicer who potentially has, you use the term weak and palmy in the left hand there. So what we're talking about there is that if you're looking down at your golf grip at your top hand, right, you might only see one knuckle from golf posture without moving your eyes, right? And the golf club will be kind of running up through the palm of your hand if you have a weak grip. And you made a very valid point as we move into the takeaway position, right, of when someone gets there, how their wrists want to move in a certain orientation to try and get comfortable, like, with their forearms as well, is I use the thing of like, I have my GC quad bag or my backpack there, or a range ball basket. And I say to people, how do you pick this up? And they put it straight in their fingers and they'll look down. And as you pick up a basket or a suitcase kind of grip, we call it as well, is you'll see that when you look down, when you pick up this stuff, right, you'll never look at shopping bags the same ever again, because you'll pick up shopping bags and start looking at your golf top hand grip, right? And you'll start to see that your left wrist is in a very comfortable position when it's your top hand, when it's curved, and you're seeing more knuckles, and that you're holding that range ball bucket in your fingers. So that's a great demonstration, because you'll often get them to put the range ball bucket in their palm and go, how does that feel? And their top hand, will go into like a bowing type of motion, or a flex position as we call it, and it'll feel uncomfortable to hold it there. So yeah, I use those types of tricks with helping people understand their grip, is like a range ball bucket or lifting up a backpack or something, in that top hand. Yeah. What's some of the, do you do some stuff like that? Do you have anything else to kind of add to that bit, or?
Yeah, no, I love that. I've used that many, many times to get the player to position the grip within their palm in the right place, for sure. One of my other ones I use a lot is I think people get into trouble when they try to grip the club when the club's in its playing position. So I'll have them hold the club up vertically with their non-glove hand, their trail hand, and then place hold their glove hand out, kind of with their fingers pointing directly away from them, and then let the club kind of sit where the base of their fingers meets the base of their palm, wrap their fingers around it first, and then kind of cover their thumb on the grip second. So I think it's easier to get it in the right orientation with the shaft a little bit more vertical at address, like perpendicular to the ground, with the grip end of the club facing down towards the ground, than it is to, get into, when the club's on the ground already to grip it. Because I find most players will then just come in from the side and grip it more in the palm.
Yes. I agree. It's also kind of like their lead arm's not that kind of long either, and they're kind of a bit shruggy, and it might be a bit bent, the lead arm, and I reckon that kind of gets them a bit palmier too. Like how many times you walk over to someone and you start pushing the handle down, like get down, you know, relax it down and extend it out, and that's a great thing, that holding the hand out in front of you, because you'll see straight away holding the arm out vertically like that, you'll help you too. And I've got a great vision of Adam Scott when he holds his lead hand, his left hand, and he has
Yep.
it just, he puts his left hand on only to the side of his body where his arm's hanging down naturally, like
Yep.
left hand, and then he brings it over like in front of his body and then puts his right hand on and goes into the ball. Like it's the same
Right.
every time. Like you're seeing behind the ball when you see him and he's just holding it in his left hand and then he
Yep.
brings it around, and it's, getting his top hand grip on there. Good. All right. So that leads us into the takeaway. So you feel if you've got the orientation of, it's obviously, we could talk about that position for a whole episode, but you've got
Yep.
the orientation of the forearms and that top hand will make it easier to set the club how you want it. P2, takeaway, club shaft level to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the biggest things I see is not being able to leverage the club off the ground enough with that lead hand because of the palmy orientation of the grip. So the club head will be very low relative to the hands, at P2. And then from there, a lot of lifting has to take place. And then that tends to, mess things up at the top. So from there, they're able to kind of push down on the grip with their palm a little bit. And that helps kick the club head up into the air. And then the other nice little cue or visual or external focus I like is to take a tee, and you put a tee in the air hole at the top of your grip. So it's, there's half of inch of tee is stuck in the air hole on the top of your grip, so that most of the tee is sticking out. And kind of, and this is for players, this is more of an exaggerated feel for players who have the club way inside and the club head way underneath their hands, is to feel at shaft parallel that tee is pointing more at the inside of their lead thigh. So that will actually point that club shaft a bit more in the opposite diagonal relative to, if you're thinking about the target line is 6 o'clock back towards the camera where it's filming, you want to point the club head and the shaft of your club more out towards 5 o'clock. So that tee will point more towards, your inside of your left thigh at club shaft parallel. So that guarantees that the club head's a bit more off the ground and that the club head's maybe slightly outside the hands at P2.
God, I love that. I love that. It's a great one. And what Keith's talking about there, right, is that the position it's an exaggerated position. I use the term in coaching that in golf we have to ask for a mile to get an inch.
Yep.
And when we've now strengthened that top hand grip and we've gotten into that new position at P2 there with the club head more outside because it's not rolled on the inside, I just love something you said there, Keith, and I love that. My heart fluttered. I was so excited. You spoke there about pressures on the handle with that top hand and pushing down on it. Can you educate us a little bit more on that, because this is big?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts with getting the grip right, obviously. But, like a lever, right, you got to push down on one side of it to make the other side move. So we want the club head, for most players, we want the club head to get a little bit more lift off the ground, but not lifting the arms to do so. So a lot of players will try to cheat it by pushing their arms out away from their body and creating a lot of separation from the triceps and the pecs. So we want a connected takeaway, and you could to make sure you don't cheat it, you could place a towel across your chest and underneath your armpits so you don't lift your arms to cheat this and to learn this this type of takeaway. So that the towel would have to stay kind of glued to your chest via your upper arms against your sides. But pushing down with the pad of your left hand, kind of like if you were flipping a burger with your left hand, like flipping a burger or a pancake on the stove or something, right? The upward flick. That pushes the grip down, which makes the spatula go up, which makes the club head go up, which makes the pancake go into the air, or makes the club head go into the air. You couple that up with a little bit of pelvic turn, a little bit of kind of rib cage turn, and you've got yourself a pretty nice little club shaft parallel P2 takeaway spot.
Oh gosh, and for people out there listening, I've made it a bit of a mission of late, and I've been educating a lot of people on my Skillers followers as well about, and posting videos of Rory getting the club early. And, I've got so much footage to share with everyone. I'm going to try and stay consistent with this to educate people about getting the club under control early, Keith. And when we mean under control, if you're lifting and rolling, you don't quite have that club in your grasp just yet. If you're rolling the forearms too early, in my opinion, like excessively, if you're folding your arms to get that club taken away, and Keith keeps using the word a few times, they're lifting the club up. And, to use that spatula terminology is fantastic. I love to use a hammer. And
Yep.
most, men or females, I should say, sorry, as well, who I coach, right, have used a hammer, right, teaching a lot of tradies. And I said,
Yep.
I said to them, I know you have never ever thought about how you use a hammer, but you've just used it, right?
Right.
But I want you to think about what's actually happening as you are leveraging the hammer part with your handle. Think about what
Yep.
you're doing. The bottom part of your hand and that pad part there is pushing down on the handle, right? Like that. That's helping you get that head of the hammer to come up. You're pushing on that hand. Boof, boof, boof. Think about that now in the takeaway. Now, I want you to think about the role of the bottom hand or your right hand for the right-handed golfer in this. Your right thumb is helping you push on this, right? It's helping
Yep.
you hinge the club, not lift it. Not lifting the club up. We're hinging it up. And then your fingers on your right hand are actually helping you lift a little bit.
Yeah, like the index finger on that right hand as almost like a little hook.
That trigger finger. I love it.
Yep.
And people,
Hold the club
that's
head.
why we like that trigger finger down a little more, like past the thumb nearly at times. So we're talking about what Keith talked about there about, pushing on that handle and getting under control early. That's some really good knowledge, and I'm really happy that he shared that, because that's the quality of the coach that Keith is, that he, understands. I'm not saying that you wouldn't have understand that, right? But a lot of coaches out there, I don't think, educate enough people in regards to that role, because if you want them to have control of this club, give them a nice grip and then teach them how to get it under control when it's in momentum.
Yep.
Because if you've lost control early, you ain't going to catch that darn thing later on in the piece, right?
No.
And anyways, I think that's a really valuable thing is understanding that. So, all right, let's understand that we have now, by changing setup and adjusting the takeaway position, we're now, more often than not, if people follow me, they'll see a lot of me posting before and afters. The rest of the orientation of our golf swing is going to be where we kind of want it. Like it's going to happen due to the nature, because we have changed these adjustments at setup, takeaway position, and you're under control and you're tilting and turning hopefully in accordance. Talk to me about some stuff on the ground around that you use, external stuff or things that we can educate the golfer to help, I guess, what's the word you would use there to change their understanding or to manipulate how the club wants to move through impact? What's some strategies that you use?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go a couple of ways. It depends on the severity that the player is wanting to swing out to in, and how ingrained that pattern is. You kind of get a sense for when you're working with players, like, oh, this is like through question asking, like, hey, I'll always ask what other sports have a player played, right? The two light bulbs that I always love to hear are tennis and soccer, right? So
yes,
if they tell me they play both, I'm like, okay, you know how to make something curve, right? So like straight away, or even table tennis, right? You know how to make a table tennis curve. So those are the folks that are like, okay, if I just give you a little bit of understanding about what makes this ball curve, similar to, curving a soccer ball around a wall of defenders, or a tennis ball, making it spin, top spin, back spin, whatever you needed to do. That's always easiest. It's the folks who maybe don't have that background, to just really swing it over the top. One of the simplest ones I'll use is I'll just take an alignment stick. If I'm on grass, I'll stick that alignment stick in the ground so that it's at an angle hanging about a foot to a foot and a half over the golf ball. So it's stuck in the ground. You can use a range basket if you don't have access to grass. And you can kind of weave it through the holes in the range basket so that it serves this same purpose. I've posted about this drill many times on my page on Instagram. But basically, with the alignment stick hanging directly over the top of the ball at an angle, they can't swing over the top, or else they'll hit the alignment stick. So it just gives them this subconscious, external, subliminal message that, hey, this golf club fundamentally has to approach this ball from a different angle. And I don't even care. It depends on where I'm at in the lesson with the player. But if I don't even care sometimes if the face isn't perfect when it's coming into the ball. I just need you to understand that the club has to approach the ball from a different orientation and from a different angle. And then it feels crazy, but when they see it on film, it looks so good that, the buy-in takes place and they love the way it looks. So, that's just off the top of my head, one of the ones I've used so many times. And I've kind of learned to orient it so it doesn't influence the takeaway too much from the inside anymore. But it really does, especially when it comes to people learning to hit up and from the inside on the driver. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I like that. When shifting this pattern in person or online, but in person in specifically, I use a GC quad, so my GC quad is sitting next to the student, and
Yep.
I just give them a goal. I'm like, see this number here. This is your out to in. This is what we
Right.
discussed earlier. This is 10 degrees out to in, right? Now, we're trying to swing out through an object on the ground that we've used or whatever we've got. We need that club to be going to whatever parameter we're acceptable, right? We want that to
Yep.
be cut in half. Let's get as close as we can down to zero. If we want to go really crazy, we want to get that ball to draw here today. So then what that does for the student is if they're shanking it, topping it, sculling it, hitting it fat, that number becomes the goal and they're not worried about the outcome of the ball just yet.
Right.
Because if you're making a swing change and a big adjustment like Keith and I are talking about, don't get wrapped up in the ball flight. If you do, I had a guy the other day. I pulled him to the side and I nearly shook him. I said, stop caring about the ball. I said, if you keep caring about that ball flight,
Right.
things aren't going to freaking change because you're going to keep doing what you want to do. I said, look at that number there. That's our goal. And then 6 swings later, he just hit the best shot of his life. He nearly started crying. He was unhappy, right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't got access to, these numbers to help give you encouragement that we are shifting correctly, then what Keith said there about using a camera, just film it and take a look at what that club's doing in slow motion from down the line, good camera angle, and see is it shifting more in the way that you want it to be shifting, or dropping that club down at club shaft level to the ground in the downswing and just looking at that orientation of that position there of the shaft and is it starting to look more the way that you like it.
Right.
So, yeah, there wouldn't be, you go.
I was going to say it comes back to, again, like having a model too, I think, and again, me using Rory as a setup model, obviously then I looked at his swing and I watched it about 5,000 times in slow motion on YouTube. And I just tried to kind of emulate his body positions and what his club was doing. Right.
Yeah.
And I think without a model to look at, like in all of my online lessons, I'll usually do some sort of, side-by-side comparison with a tour pro of, that is demonstrating what I want them to eventually learn. And then I'll obviously give them that video too. And I'll say, hey, watch this 5 times a day or 5 times before you go to bed, because research shows us that you learn a lot when you sleep. So watch it 5 times you go to bed, slow-mo. That's all. That's all your homework is, right? If you can't do anything else, just promise me you'll watch this video, put it in a folder in your phone where you can get to it. Watch it 5 times before you go to bed. That's all I need from you, because you just start to see things the way they're supposed to look. You start to emulate it. When you film it yourself, you'll know what to look for, and things get a little bit better. So you got to have a model, I think, because you and I both know how much if you looked at both of our camera rolls right now, you'd throw up with how many of my own golf swings I have on my own photos app. So it's just what we do. But it's also we do it because it's effective, right? Like I'll make a swing and I'll think I know what happened, but then I gotta confirm it on camera, and that's me having hit millions of balls, right? And you doing the same thing. So for folks who haven't done that, it's like a non-starter. It's like you kind of have to do it. And I mean, coming back to your boy Robert Rock, I listened to an episode with him. I think he was on Cam McCormick's podcast. I can't remember. Yeah. But he was talking to Cam about, how many slow-mo balls he hit in a net, like how many swings he made, less than full speed. Right. And it's like, if I'm hitting into a net, I try to impress this on people all the time. Like, what the hell are you doing swinging full speed? You can't even see the ball flight. Like, why are you swinging full speed into a net? Like, unless you're working specifically on clubhead speed training, right? Like, swing slow. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. No, I understand. And yeah, I agree. I agree. Swing slow and move whenever you're changing a pattern. And I think when we're talking about that changing a pattern and using that external stuff on the ground, or bring it back to like a half a golf swing with an 8-iron. I call it the 100-yard 7-iron, kind of type of shot. But and I use the example, if I can't get someone to slow down, I go, well, what do you do for work? And they go, well, I work in software. I go, all right, if you have a new trainee or apprentice come into your work, you're telling them to take it slow. You slow it down. You stop going so quickly. You're going to break things. You're going to do things wrong. If you want to learn, do it slow. It's like the golf swing's the same, it's the same thing when we're learning the golf swing. But a lot of the time as well, there is some times where I'll ask someone who, I teach a lot of people who are professional athletes or something, and I know they do things hard and fast and they're strong and they're muscular.
Yeah.
It can be difficult to slow them down because, it'd be like trying to slow Usain Bolt down. I don't think he could do a slow golf swing.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, like I agree. I try to slow everyone down. And then when someone goes, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, it's not going 100 yards. I'm like, I don't care. It's like 20% less than what you normally do.
Right.
Let's settle for that.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. And I think, to close on that before I ask a couple of questions, hopefully we've got a couple of time, but that there is I have never tried to move someone's path into out without using an external object on the ground to help change it.
Right.
Like I've never not put an alignment stick on the ground, say at 3:00 or, swinging between range ball buckets. I think that you do that one a little bit with balls on the ground as well. Like I've always done something like that to paint this imagery on the ground of where you want that club to swing, because you're looking at a blank canvas down there. So yeah. What, like using a model is fantastic to watch, but also understanding what we want things to do on the ground and just mucking around with it and shifting it. Because I got a beautiful 2 videos of Tommy Fleetwood on opposite ends of the range at the same tournament, 10 years apart, with the same hitting station.
Yep.
It's like he knew what worked to help shift his pattern in the way that he wants it to be. So his station has stayed the same, and my elite players are very consistent with their stations and so for one thing I can encourage for coaches and everyone and students is to put that on the ground.
Yeah. Same with I'm always amazed looking at Justin Rose throughout the years, right? Like Justin Rose has used like the same 3 drill stations every time I've ever seen a video of him hitting balls. There's an alignment stick coming straight back off the back of his club, on a target line, and then there's an alignment stick on the angle of the shaft of the club that he's using, and he's, painting that club shaft with his club head on the way back. He's either got some sort of smart ball or inflatable ball between his arms, and like that's pretty much all you're going to see him do. And it's like, the guy's got an enviable golf swing, and there's a reason why. Like, you just don't deviate from it, and it's, there's only so much you can do. You and I are both passionate about it. We want our students to improve. So we want them to use the drill stations that we set up. So again, it's got to be simple. It's got to be easy. It's got to be rememberable. Obviously you and I both give recaps of what we do to our lessons every time so that a student can watch it back. That's the beauty of online lessons in my mind. Just a quick tangent on online lessons. It's like, the ability to watch your lesson back whenever you want and to watch how the drill is set up whenever you want is like invaluable. But that's another deal. But it's you want consistency. You talk about consistency. How about you practice consistency? How about your practice is consistent?
Yeah. And we talk about the same thing about running. I go to them like I want more consistency. How often do you train? I generally hit a bucket of balls before I play, maybe about once a week. Or,
right.
I might go to the range and play twice a month and go to the range once a month. Okay, great. So if you went for a run once a month, would you get any faster?
Yeah. No.
That's and what's great about that is I share about this as well, what you said about Justin Rose there. And I feel like I really want to share it is that, we don't need to bang thousands of balls to get better. Like
Right.
Justin Rose is controlling the environment and he's
Yep.
measuring it a lot through film and, his ball track club and ball tracking device. He's recalibrating himself on a daily basis. He doesn't
Right.
need to go bang 1,000 balls. Go to the range, get your station set up, get 50 balls. Don't get 100 balls. Get 50 balls. Film it every fifth ball. You'll be there for the same amount of time, but gee whiz, you'll be so much better off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you just talk about recalibration. Like that's all those drills are. Like for Fleetwood, that ball hitting station is just like, cause for him to, swing the way he wants feels different. It'll feel different in a month from now than it did, at the Ryder Cup. But if he does the same thing, he'll know that, okay, it feels like X today. It felt like Y last month, but the ball's going to fly the same. Right. And that's all he cares about.
Yeah, no, I love that. So have you got 10 more minutes, Keith?
Yeah, let's rip.
All right, let's get into some questions. Right, I want to ask you some cool stuff. I saw a video of you some time ago. You need to give me the whole story, right? Where you got a hole in one at a very famous hole. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so last February, down here in Scottsdale, Arizona, about I want to say it was like a week and a half before the Phoenix Open, the waste management Phoenix Open. My buddy Christian, who's a student of mine, but also just a good friend, he texted me. He said, "Hey, I got an open slot. We're gonna go play TPC Scottsdale on I think it was like just a couple days in advance." And I actually had some lessons, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go play. So I rescheduled those lessons. Apologies for those listening who I might have rescheduled. Yeah, sorry if that was inconvenient. I rescheduled those lessons, and I went and played. And, it was a beautiful day. There was actually a little bit of a frost delay. So it was a beautiful day, but a little cold in the winter in the morning, but then it got really nice. And we're making our way towards 16 there, the famous stadium par 3, and all the stands are up and everything because it's a week from the event. And we're just chatting with some of the caddies up 15, which is a cool par 5 right before you head into the stadium. We're like, "You ever seen a hole in one out here?" He said, "Nope, we never caddied for one." A couple guys got really close, and so we're just joking around, obviously, and. Of course, I had my tripod with me. Of course, I was going to, film the shot regardless of what happened.
Yeah.
And so I think I was like third to go. And
so
we're just
the 16th, right? For people listening, that's the big hole, right? That's the one with that's what they call it, the stadium hole, right?
That's the stadium hole. It's it's like a gladiator arena for golf, basically. I've been to the tournament the last couple years, and it's just like the electricity in there is crazy. Everybody's hyped up. They're playing music. They've got,
it's nuts.
It's nuts. Everyone's inebriated. They've been in the sun since, 5 a.m. Folks line up at like 3:34 in the morning at the gates, and then they let them in at like 5, 6 a.m. and everybody runs towards the runs to get a spot in the bleachers for the general admission. And then they pretty much just camp out there all day, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like they spend the entire day there. Yeah.
For the 16th, so you get there. So your third player to hit, did you say?
Third up. Yep. I don't think anyone had hit the green yet. I think there have been some decent shots that maybe just rolled off the sides. No one had hit the green yet. So I'm up. I like, to be honest, I was like nervous for sure. Like you kind of like standing on the tee, the the hole, the magnitude of the hole. It's only it was like 138 yards. It's like I was trying to, the pin was in the back. I was just trying to pitch it like 130 and let it just kind of like release back. So I had a pitching wedge, and it just hit a shot that was like right at it. As soon as it left the face, I was like, well, it's going to be a good shot, which I was stoked because I just wanted to hit a good shot. I was like, it's going to be a good shot. And then it was like, damn, this is like right at it, and like right at it. And so it hit the green. It took one hop, and then it disappeared. And the flag was in the back, so I couldn't tell if it had, gone off the false, the little runoff in the back, and we just didn't see the second bounce because, But then this worker, this guy who was like zip tying things to the stands, threw both of his hands up because he was watching the shot and he obviously heard it go in the hole. And then, the group that I was
way.
with, we all just like lost our shit and started running around. And,
Sorry.
yeah,
That's
it
some
was
good
crazy.
carry on. That's crazy. So
Yeah.
what, one bounce in?
One bounce in. It was a great shot right at it. Like, I mean, everyone was we were all just freaking out. I think, Golf Channel showed it. A bunch of, I think ESPN showed it. I think several accounts showed it because it was like right before the event. So like it was super timely. It was super like timely as well. It wasn't like months out. It was like in the lead up to the event. So I still obviously I have the golf ball and a signed flag from everybody in my group and the scorecard. And so I haven't gotten around to it, but I'm gonna do a little kind of framed shadow box situation to put up in the office.
Is like, let's like put it into perspective. Like, that's in terms of holes on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
I can probably only think of, like, apart from anything at Augusta, right?
Yeah. Right.
Is probably at Sawgrass, the 17th.
Sawgrass 17. Yeah.
I could imagine that they're probably the two.
Yeah.
I'd probably, maybe without being disrespectful, probably put Sawgrass a little higher because that tournament is the Players Championship.
Totally.
But that's probably the second most place you want to get a hole-in-one out of any tour.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, again, of memorable holes that, like, if I told a non-golfer where I made a hole-in-one, there's a chance they're going to know, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
So, that's for sure. As far as, like, memorable holes, that's up there. And the crazy thing is, like, normally we would only have, like, 2 holes left to play, but we played the back 9 first because of the frost delay, and they wanted everybody to get through that stretch of holes, which is pretty much the only reason people play there. So we played the back 9 first, and then we finished number 9 almost in the dark because of the delay. But but it left time then for everybody to rack up a pretty good bar tab on my behalf, because we had like 12 holes left to go. So
oh, that's awesome. I remember seeing that, just going, man, that is just so cool. And Keith being the social media guy he is as well, like, and us golf coaches, like, I don't play around a golf without filming. I got my iRange sports thing that I just have in my golf bag permanently. I've actually got on my phone here, I got the magnet. It just every shot, dunk. It just only takes me 2 seconds. I film, not just every shot, but most shots. I don't get to play a whole lot, but most shots. All right, can you tell me about one of your big students, which I think is really cool, right? And I think he's got one of my favorite songs from my childhood, right?
Yep.
When did you? How did the relationship start, and when did you start coaching like Macklemore?
Yeah, so Ben and I met through social media. So he like had just started taking up golf, and I followed his account, and I was living in Seattle at the time, and he posted, like, on one of his stories, he posted a video of him like practicing like a golf swing in the airport with no golf club. And I just like, kind of like, for shits, I just like commented, I said, "You need more hip turn." Right. And like, he wrote me back and was like kind of asking about it. And then we kind of got to talking, and I was like, hey, if you're ever in Seattle, you want to come through for a lesson, obviously it's on me. And so he was on tour at the time. I think it was maybe like a month later, like, we reconnected. And the first time we met, we actually played a round of golf at at this course called West Seattle golf course in Seattle, which is like one of the kind of the municipal courses there. Yeah. And so we played 18 the first time we met, and we hit it off, and we did some lessons after that. And it just kind of so happened that during that time, like, that was right before like the pandemic shut everything down. And so he couldn't tour anymore because of that, obviously. And then we were all just at home, but then like a month after the shutdown, they let golf open back up. And so he and I just ended up playing a ton of golf during that time frame, and working on his swing and just becoming friends. And then obviously I would say it's more just kind of bloomed into like a friendship But obviously I still like consult with him on his golf swing. He'll send me swings whenever he's playing golf, and kind of, we've got like 3 or 4 different like feels or kind of like verbiage that we use that kind of resonates with him. And we'll kind of just like chat about that when he's on the road. And he's also got a little, I can't remember, I don't think he uses iRange, but he might use, he uses like an alignment stick holder, that goes with his cell phone that I got for him that he can film. Cause I was like, just film me some swings from the course, man. Like, cause it's hard to get him to film on the range sometimes. So, so that's how we've done it. And last year was super special.
That's cool.
He invited me out to, kind of coach / caddy at the AT&T, Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So yeah, I caddied for him for 2.5 days and worked with him on his swing on the range and just hung out. And it was, again, one of the cooler, golf experiences I've had to date. And so it's been good. Hopefully we can go to that. I can go to that event with him again this coming year.
That's cool. What's it like when you start hanging out? Were you a bit starstruck at first?
Yeah. I mean, I think, of course, everyone, I think you are at first, but he's got a really comfortable, like pretty welcoming way about him where he's, like you just, I think because we had talked a little bit, I just felt kind of at ease around him. He is who he is, obviously like a mega star and, known around the freaking world and tours all over the world. But, we just kind of hit it off. And, like I had kind of been around some athletes and some stuff from the Seahawks in Seattle and kind of gotten a little bit more comfortable, just being around, that type of person. And so, I mean, of course you're definitely a little starstruck, but, he's just such a cool dude. Like we were just kind of like friends right off the bat.
He seems like such a cool guy because I'm going to say that his music is somewhat kind of healing a part of the fractured world, right? With some of the words that he uses and the songs that he brings out. Like,
right.
They're not just your typical type of songs. There seems to be a real positive motive around his music. And I like that he's using his position to try and educate and bring people together. Like, I freaking love that about that guy, right? Not that I listen to much music at all. I'm a big podcaster like you, right?
Yeah.
And I love educating myself, but I listen to his stuff and I think, man, this guy, he seems like a really cool dude. And what's it like at AT&T? Was he getting much attention from people?
Oh, for sure. I'd say he was like one of the, if not the most popular person, celebrity wise. I mean, he was, everybody in the crowd wanted a photo, autographs. I mean, he's very outgoing, pretty extrovert. So, he was interacting with the crowd for sure. And like, obviously he dresses the way he dresses. So you're not going to he's not going to blend in with the crowd. Right. So, he's going to stand out. And I think it's easy for everybody to kind of figure out where he is on the golf course. And he was for sure, I'd say top 5 most popular, celebrity there. No doubt.
Were you nervous caddying?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that was my first time being inside the ropes at a PGA Tour event, let alone like now I'm caddying on the bag. Right.
Yeah.
But we had a pretty cool group. Like it was me, Lonto Griffin, who was Ben's pro partner, Garrick Higo, who's a South African, and then Schoolboy Q was the other rapper with us in the group. So it was a pretty lighthearted group. And Stephen Malbon was Schoolboy's caddy. So it was a pretty lighthearted group. It was pretty mellow, which made it a little bit easier for sure. But I was just like, I've watched so much freaking golf on TV. Like I know where to stand. I know what to do with the flag. I know it. And it's, at that event, obviously all of the pros who play are a little bit like, they know that like their line is going to get walked in a couple of times, like their pro, their celebrity partner is going to be signing an autograph while they're trying to putt. And like, it's kind of like known that it's still at a PGA Tour event, obviously, but it's like a little bit more known that it's not going to be like as buttoned up. So I think that helped relieve some of the nerves. But like, dude, I'll tell you, I'm 5'8", 150, and trying to carry one of those tour bags in the rain with rain gear and water and food and umbrella. Like, my shoulder was like gonna freaking fall off. It was a problem. I respect to those caddies who do that week in and week out, because your body takes a beating.
And your body, you would have been, so when you look at your spine alignment, right, when you're doing that, and you would have been very uncomfortable, you would have had, one side of your body, so you're covering on your right shoulder, right? The whole left-hand side of your body is engaged to try and keep it up. So the left-hand side of your core, like doing single arm walks with a kettlebell. So you try to find your ball position after 3 days of that, Keith, and it might be out, right?
Dude,
How far does Gary Kigo hit it?
He hit it as straight as anybody I've ever seen hit a golf ball. And far too. I mean, he and Lanto both hit it really far. Garrick probably, on good strikes, they were head to head. Easily like, 290, 295 a carry, yards pretty easily. But he just didn't miss. And I think he finished well that week. But yeah, I mean, no curve, just dead straight. Irons, the right distance, just really good. I mean, I was super impressed with Garrick because I knew about him. I just obviously hadn't seen him play. He hits it really good.
How did your boy play? Did you get him over the line or what?
He didn't make the final day. That's the goal this year, is to make the final round. So, the first 3 days you play Monterey, Spyglass, and Pebble. No, sorry, the final day is, or the third day is just the pros. So you play Monterey, Spyglass, and then last day is Pebble Beach.
Oh, okay.
So you got to qualify to make the final day, and I think only 20 teams make the final day of the Pro-Am.
Okay, that's not much.
Yeah, no, it's not much. So like all the really good athletes, like the Aaron Rodgers, the Josh Allens, the Larry Fitzgeralds, the Alfonso Ribeiros, Michael Pena, they're all sticks. Like, they can really play. So they're all going to make it every time. So yeah, I mean, he played better than we thought he was going to play, for sure.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
You can imagine showing up, you play one tournament a year, and it's a freaking tour event on national TV. Yeah. Like, I mean, I try to tell him that all the time when he's like bummed out how he didn't play. I'm like, dude, you play one event a year and it's on the biggest stage on the earth. Like, it's just like literally the worst thing you could do to yourself is throw yourself right in this one time a year. It's just not conducive to playing your best all the time, but he did good.
That's true. He's not comfortable enough playing tournament golf, right? All right. No. Mate, this has been a lot of fun, Kate. It's been great to catch up. So
I enjoyed it.
You mentioned that you do some online coaching, and I obviously know you do. What type of packages and stuff do you do monthly subscriptions as well? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I've got a single lesson, I've got a 3-lesson package, and then I have a unlimited monthly subscription. So I just have the 3 options. But obviously, like, Skillest just introduced the groups subscription there, which I haven't launched. I want to figure out kind of exactly what I want to do with that before I kind of announce it. But I definitely will be launching that here in the near future. But yeah, right now, basically, like, if you follow me on Skillest, if you use code Keith50, you can take 50% off your first month of the unlimited subscription. So if you follow me on the app, that's just a way to kind of get people familiar with and comfortable with how the program works. And most folks really enjoy it and they stick around. So, it's been crazy. I mean, I 5-6 years ago, I think I remember like getting on the phone with Baden, like, cause I was like one of the first to use the app, and like he like reached out and wanted to set up a phone call with me. And I was charging like, $24 a month or something for a subscription, and just happy with, thought it was cool to do that. and it just becomes such a part of my weekly routine, and I truly enjoy it. I think it's one of the coolest things that we've got going, to be able to connect with folks from literally all over the planet at in lightning speed, and it's pretty amazing what we can do from our cell phones these days.
It's great, and everyone knows when I talk about this here but it's like being a tour coach as well to recreational golfers. I have some tour guys on there, but because you got the ability to be there and ride the waves. So I use statistics app called Draw More Circles, which released a podcast on that before, and I have all my students kind of on Draw More Circles, so collecting statistical information. So I kind of see when they play, I get the notifications come through, and I go, oh, great score, or not so great score, and we kind of react a little bit to the information that's coming through, and it's really cool because you feel like you're in the corner with them, right? It's not like the old one and done lesson and see you later type of business, and you get a message saying, oh, I'm playing good or I'm playing bad. That's what I really like about it. And you don't have, and some of the stuff that Keith was talking about before about kind of understanding if you understand the ball flight laws, understand how you can get your setup to, manipulate this stuff and understand the takeaway, we can talk about that stuff in your own golf game for 3 months straight, and you can continue to keep learning. I'm spitting out different information to try and get the same result with some students. And if you like learning and you like being educated on your own golf swing and understanding and becoming your own golf coach, like the online subscription, you jump on for a few months and you can, I'm not going to say be able to self-diagnose yourself, but you can to a degree, right? Because you've really learned a lot about your game, and people ask me questions, and I think that's what's the beauty about it. And even the groups feature, Keith, what I've got going on is I've got my golf physio coming on this Friday, and we're having a Zoom call with my golf physio and my subscribers. So bi-weekly, I'm going to have like a specialist come on and talk to my subscribers for free, which is pretty cool. Answer their questions, and the group feature is really, really cool. So people like wondering what group feature is, that's all the subscribers in the one community, and we're just talking. And one of the cool things of the day, Keith, was on two occasions, people were introducing themselves into the groups feature. Two guys play at the same golf course in America. Right?
No way.
Yes, promise you. And another two guys playing the same golf course in Victoria in Australia. Where I am. Like, I don't have that many subscribers, but like just the chances of that, it just...
Yeah, that's minimal.
It's actually three. Another two already knew each other. They're the same at the same golf course. I think they kind of might have both spoke to each other. But yeah, it's crazy. And, don't underestimate what Keith was talking about there about gaining knowledge and learning about your own golf swing and having the knowledge around what creates a ball to do what it does. If you go for a one-off lesson, you might be getting fixed for now. Like, I love that fishing term you use, right? I'll teach you how to fish. You can, what was it again? Say it again.
If I teach you to fish, I'll feed you for a lifetime.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's kind of like online coaching. I think it's fantastic.
Yep. You need to be, I think, just to add on that, and we can wrap, but like, you need to be immersed in that coaching for at least a couple of months. I mean, and the nice thing about the online stuff is it'll, to get that much instruction would cost you thousands of dollars in person, right? And it's a fraction of that online. And, you get such good value for your purchase, just because, I can sit there for 5, 6, 7 minutes and break down what makes the ball do what for a student, and they can watch that back whenever they want, and they can know that information is pertinent to their swing, which is the big piece. Yeah,
and it's not like it's a side hustle by all means. It's what our primary focus is, and I just truly believe in it, and I've tried a lot of things to try and incorporate a similar into my in-person coaching model, because but you just can't get it, and people kind of wondering if you're still on the fence about it all. It's like bite-sized chunks of information. People come in for a golf lesson, I'm like, okay, great, put your ball here. I would like them just to go hit 1,000 balls and report back. Or 100
right, balls. Just on that one ball change.
Go hit 100 balls and tell me about the ball flight and measure it for me. And it's the same thing we do it online. It's like, if you're going to a golf lesson and you're feeling incredibly overwhelmed with what you're getting told, then it's just because the format is probably not just quite right for you. And
Right.
if you want to learn, so understanding and learning about each individual thing, like I'll put the ball here and I can get this to happen. Oh, that's cool. And then work with
Yeah.
that for a week and understand how that works and go, oh, what's next, coach? Well, let's do this. So
Right.
anyways, everyone knows how much I'm passionate about that type of learning. And it's not even to take it out of the online coaching banner. It's like it's that type of learning. If you could come to me every day for 5 minutes, I'd love that. But you
Right.
can't.
Exactly.
It's not possible.
Right.
Hey, Keith, it's been a lot of fun. I got to let you pick up Ollie from daycare, mate, or school. What do you call that there? School?
Daycare.
Daycare? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we do too. He knows. Mate, it's been a lot of fun, mate. And I'll put all the links below. People get you your online coaching, get you on your social media channels will be all below. And appreciate you coming on the Golf Coach podcast, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it, Toby, man. And keep doing up the good work, and I'll keep following what you're doing.
Thanks, Keith. You're the man.
All right. Cheers.